Good afternoon, thrill seekers, and welcome to episode 3 of Classic Cars and Coffee Celebrity Squares. You are in for a treat tonight. Most of us have been out of the country, and we're now back after the Christmas break. And the last Classic Cars and Coffee, UWA, was an absolute cracker. I think close to 800 and something cars there. Every car park was full. There were people that were hanging motorbikes out of trees and cars everywhere. I've never seen so many classic cars in one place. It was awesome. And we've got our usual panel here today, plus one guest, and that's Sean Barth. And Sean is our Lexus ISF chap, and he's going to tell us how he's been progressing with that. And I understand, Ross, you're going to love this. He's joined the Volvo sect, because that's the only thing to call it. It's he's got bought a 240 or a 245 wagon, and it's a thing of great joy. Obviously, our fearless leader of Classic Cars and Coffee, Derek Graham, is with us. We've got Rex Havoc. He's been back from the Himalayas for a little while now, and he's helping me buy and ship across the country another bloody motorbike. And Jeff, who only arrived back in the country on Monday after an extremely enviable trip, because I saw the photographs and it was an absolute cracker, from food to geisha to classic cars. It was all happening. It was just sensational. So let's kick it off. Derek, I'm going to cut across to you and ask you what's been going down for you this month, and then we'll come back and do Ross. We'll do the top row. Derek.
Hey, so even we were surprised with Classic Cars and Coffee. We gave everyone a briefing to get there early, that it might be, it will be large, et cetera, et cetera. And the crew, the people were fantastic. So the first cars arrived at 6:20 in the morning. So it's the opening time is at 8:30. So the first cars were there at 6:20. By 7:30 in the morning, the main car park number 3 was 3/4 full, 1 hour before the event happened. We actually parked 920 cars. Wow. And we did that because we filled up car park 3, 4, 6, 9, and underground car park underneath the main management school library in UWA. So for those that aren't familiar, University of Western Australia sits on Hackett Drive, which is right next to the Swan River. And at about 8 o'clock, the queue to get into the first gates was 4.2 kilometers long. It went from the gate all the way along Riverside Drive, all the way down to the Swanbury. So for those that know Western Australia, that means the entire front of Kings Park that sits on the Swan River, there was a queue. And it's all been videoed. And of course, that made us feel not wonderful, but guilty. So one of the things that we did, because we had such a fabulous turnout on the day, was realize that 6 volunteers struggle to park 900 cars in what is about an hour and a bit. And we did. We got away with it, but we still struggled. And so we put a call out, and I'm delighted to say we had 22 volunteers. And so the next event is going to be fully manned by people guiding in the traffic into another gate. So we've got 3 gate entries, people parking everybody comfortably in different sections. So it'll be much more of a joy this time. Mind you, I think it was a joy for everyone else, apart from those in a 45-minute queue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say that classic cars are noted for their efficiency of their cooling systems, and there would have been no tension in that 4.2 kilometer queue. The only overheating wasn't in the engine bay. The overheating was behind the wheel. Gosh. Well, that's great news. 920 cars. Is that a record?
Yeah, that's absolutely a record, yeah.
And quite a few bikes. I took my Yamaha RD350 along and parked it up on the little stage. And there was a whole bunch of bikes. It was really quite fun. And some exotic, some lovely early Italian stuff that I really got off on. It was fantastic. Ross?
So we've got someone dedicated now to greeting everybody in for the bikes, because that's such an important part. Possibly to Rex and to Simon more important, but it's a really important part. We love to see it grow, And I reckon we had maybe, I don't know, 75 bikes or something there on that particular time. But we've got capacity to park probably about 350 bikes in the area that we've got reserved and capable of doing it. So plenty of room to grow there.
So
great fun, and thank you everybody out there that came along and enjoyed it, that didn't blow a fuse when they finally got to meet us and be put into the car park having waited 45 minutes. And for those that own XJ6, V12 Jaguars, etc., best of luck to have managed to keep that car without overheating all the way into the car park.
How many tow trucks were called?
Well, because it's classic cars, at the end of the event, there's always 2 or 3 tow trucks there. Always 2 or 3 tow trucks that come in and pick up the cars that just don't start. But anyway, it's part of the joy, huh?
None of those tow trucks go down the JDM, do they, Jeff?
No.
Never happens.
Serious? No. They're picking up all the European rubbish. So.
That's it. Mainly the British rubbish that we love. Let's have a quick whip round. Ross, what have you been up to this month?
This month, well, I've had quite a bit of time off work. I've been in full holiday mode.
Nice.
So that consisted of a haircut, would you believe? Which is a...
Which
one?
Well, congratulations.
Oh, come on.
You still playing in the band?
Yeah. We released a song probably a couple of weeks ago now. Had a single launch at Indie Bar in Scarborough.
Nice.
And yeah.
Any car stuff? What have you been up to?
Yeah, sorry, what was that?
Any car stuff?
Car stuff. So I went to the Ford Farm Museum I think it's off 2J Road.
Oh yes.
I don't know if any of you have been.
No, I've never been.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed.
Very good.
Didn't know it was even there. And someone said that there was a cruise on Friday. So, I went along, and some of the cars there are incredible. There's I think there's 4 sheds, and they're full.
Wow.
And it's mainly Fords, but there's a few other things. But if you're into Ford, it's definitely one to check out.
Sounds good. Anything else?
It was probably about an hour and 15 drive. Nice drive. Done some work on the Mini.
Oh,
good.
Would you believe?
Congrats.
Again?
So where have you got an ETA?
And,
an ETA?
No, there'll never be one of them.
Oh, okay.
No.
Cool. So on to you, Rex. Microphone's off.
No one can lip read. It's all right.
There we go. That's better. I bought a Suzuki GSX 550 with the intention of turning it into a Bosuzuku.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely. So that's we'll do it. Hopefully, we'll do it
Just
properly.
to say, what is that?
Do explain.
Bosuzuku. Let me read it from what it says here. It was a Japanese subculture that associated with customizing motorcycles, and it appeared in the 50s, and it sort of peaked in the 80s. And what it is, go and Google it, but it's they'll have seats that are 6 foot tall, a fairing that is above the handlebars, and they'll just absolutely go wild with the paint. So it was the Japanese motorcycle gang.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So
Have you
Are they
been?
still around?
Yeah.
Is that still...
It
Yeah,
is.
they are.
They had
I
about
can assure you.
40,000 members in the 80s, and it dropped way down. But I don't know, Jeff, is it resurging? There's a bit more in.
Yeah, it's a more a sort of regional subculture. So we were down in Kyushu, in Fukuoka, and just on a Friday night, it's just Bosso. And the interesting thing about them is they rev the bike and they have their own signature tune.
Yeah.
So that the other Bosuzoku in the immediate area can say, "Oh, Simon's just over there. We'll go and meet up." But yeah, it's pretty annoying at like 2:00 in the morning when you're trying to go to sleep. But yeah, we even saw some in at Daikoko Futo in Yokohama. There was some out during the day, but you know they're getting on a bit. They're all old boys now, so probably less into fighting than having cups of coffee. So
Awesome. Sean, last time we spoke to you, your Lexus was looking like getting on the ship from Japan. What's happening? What's the status? The ISF.
It will be on the ship. It could be at the port. It could be at Vans West. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
It's somewhere, I think, in the country at the moment. Seb, who was on last time, he ended up taking delivery of his ISF, which got delivered to his house, but he's moved to America, so he's never going to see it. So after 4 months of waiting for it, unfortunately, he's never actually going to be able to drive the thing. So I did say to him, if you want to hand it over to myself, I'll happily look after it while mine comes. But unfortunately, he declined that offer. But I think his dad will happily drive it around until it sells. But no, I think the one thing we did run into is the quality of the imports. And one thing that we're trying to facing and probably hopefully be able to get fixed is sticky dash issues that once we saw on the auction sheet, sticky dash, we're like, oh, that can't be too bad. But actually, on further research and further inspection, it could actually be quite bad. So
What is it?
it's basically the dashboard just disintegrates. Whatever the manufacturer or the supply they used for the first couple of years, Jeff, I'm sure you probably know a bit more about this than me, but the first supplier obviously wasn't up to the task of handling any UV, even UV in Japan, let alone any UV in Australia. So basically it just disintegrates and you can just pit it out and around the edges it frays. So it's not ideal, but the whole point of buying the car was for its 5-litre V8. So I'm sure I'll just put the crappiest Kmart dash cover over the top and pretend that it's all perfect underneath. But for me, the exciting part of the last couple of months hasn't been the ISF. It's been an itch I've been wanting to scratch for a very long time. So it's probably 2 years ago. I really scratched the itch, probably the last decade for the performance car, going to track days, and that's all I kind of wanted out of cars. That's what, or looked at the lap times, big brakes, big tires. That was me. And I kind of got a bit, not over it, but you kind of tick all the boxes and you enjoy it. So I thought, you know what, I think it's time for a classic car. So spoke to some people, got some wisdom, and they said 100% go for it, but just don't pretend like you're going to drive it every day because it's going to spend most of its time at the workshop. I refuse to believe that. So I thought, what's a classic car that I can get that could be reliable? It's got to be cheap. It's got to be full of character. That's probably the number one. And why not? It has to be a wagon. So I thought I would kill all these birds with one stone, and that kind of led me to the Volvo 240. So 2 years ago, I set up the car sales notification. All right, let's get the right spec. I want it to be manual. It's going to be a 240, the years, etc. And I had to have one. I wasn't too care about the outside color, but the interior had to be blue cloth, and it had to be manual, and it had to be a wagon. So that was the thing. And I said, if one pops up, I'll throw whatever money it is, and I'll get it. Anyways, I was in Japan over Christmas, and I was, just heading to bed, having a nice whiskey and amaretto mix at the bar, and I go ding, I get the notification on my phone. Usually it's full of ISS and other stuff, and it says Volvo manual. And I was like, oh, I forgot I even had that notification. Click it, and it's this beautiful Volvo 240 out in Queensland. And of course, what do? You message the person straight away. I messaged the person, didn't respond that night, responded in the morning, and I basically got a bit too excited. And I said, yep, I want it. I'll give you asking price. I'm living in Perth. I'm in Japan at the moment, but I organise shipping. And basically what that person really thought was, he's trying to scam me. So I then proceeded to have the next 48 hours trying to convince this person, I'm not trying to scam you. I really just want to buy your Volvo. He stopped replying to me for a day. And then I got angry with it. And then I'm on a Volvo page on Facebook, and I was flicking through, and there was a photo of the Volvo I'm trying to buy, and it's posted by the guy's father saying, oh, what's wrong with the Volvo 240 market at the moment? I'm trying to sell my son's car and nothing's popping up. So I messaged him saying, I'm actually trying to buy it myself, but your son's not responding to me, and I'll happily buy for it. Anyways, I had to get my license out, take photos next to the Japanese sign saying, I actually am in Japan. please give me your bank details. I transfer the money. That's the only way I can prove to you that I'm not trying to scam you. Anyways, the money finally went in the account. He went, I'm so sorry. I'm just really cautious all this stuff. So secured the Volvo, called around, got some shipping quotes, and it finally came in. Booked it in the pits for a month in advance because in my mind it takes a month to get a car over. The car came in 8 days, surprisingly. So it's currently sitting in my front yard with no number plates, waiting for the inspection on a month's time, which is very annoying because I would love to drive the thing. It drives great. It started the first time. I tried to move it around the front yard, which all the grass is gone, and it's now sand, and I got it bogged, which wasn't a good start first driving it. So at 9:30 p.m. on a Monday night, I had this bogged Volvo. Everyone thought I stole it because I got my flashlight, and I was just limited actually trying to get it out of the mud, out of the sand. So I had to get my Honda Jazz mats, stick it under the wheel to try and get the thing unbogged, and it worked, and it was fine. So I'm very excited to join the 240 community. Ross, I'm probably going to be picking your brain at some point to work out where I can get stuff. Simon, I've already picked your brain on who to go to get Volvo parts. So, yeah, I'm happy to have the Swedish brick. It all kind of started with this. When I first wanted to do it, I told my boss that I really want a Swedish brick, and he came in the next day and made me this little Lego thing and said, there you go, mate. There's your Swedish brick. But I wasn't satisfied.
Rude.
And the first thing, as anyone does when you buy an old classic car, you got to buy the Haynes manual, which I think, even if I never open it, which I hope I don't, because I'm not handy with mechanical stuff, it looks great on the coffee table. So, I've been looking for that one.
Have you got the video version, Jeff?
I'll hear the audio book on that one as well. Anyways, very excited from the 240. Hopefully it gets past the pits. It looks okay. There's not a lot of rust on it, and it runs, and it's blue, and it's what I wanted. I'm very happy, man.
You're a lucky man. Now, Jeff, you could take up this whole show easily, and your microphone's off. And with your trip to Japan, it looked amazing. Literally, I was green with envy.
Yeah, it's it's such a wonderful place. Before I start on that, Simon, I need to fill you all in on my car movements. I bought a 911 again.
All right.
So this will be my
Yay!
8th, 9th, 911. But I bought a 996 Sport out of the UK, and it's a cable throttle, which is a big deal, and it's factory LSD, which is obviously important for me if you've seen me drive. So that's good. And I only bought one car when I was in Japan. I bought a Honda Z, which is a K car, and it's got a mid-mounted 660cc 3-cylinder, and it looks like a baby RAV4. So I've wanted one of those forever. A mate of mine had one that his neighbour gave to him about 15 years ago. So I've been eyeing that off for years, but he got rid of that. So that was the only thing I bought in Japan. I love going to Japan. It's incredible, like the cars, the scenery, the food. I only saw one geisha, Simon, and she was walking past, so I don't represent that. But yeah, it was astounding. So we had a couple of days at Auto Salon. We had press passes on the first day, and trade passes on the second. So that was pretty nice to be able to get in there.
Jeff, I've been to Auto Salon, so I know what it is, but a lot of people out there won't. Just give us a quick rundown.
Okay, so in terms of size, it is, off the top of my head, it's about 8 or 10 times bigger than the convention centre in Perth in terms of scale. There's over 100,000 people go over the 3 days. They've got drifting demonstrations. They've got, race queens, which if you want to tie up a few minutes, you can check out what a Japanese race queen is. We normally have dinner with a couple of them through a business contact, but that didn't happen this year. So everyone was very upset about that. But yeah, it's the biggest Japanese car event in the world. And not many people realise, but there's almost as many European cars sold in Japan as Japanese cars. They are just nuts for European cars, and that leads to some decent bargains when it comes time to buy one. Like I actually was looking at 911s in Japan, but unfortunately they're mostly left-hand drive because it's still a status symbol for them to have a left-hand drive car, which is the dumbest thing ever. So my T5R arrived this month, so I have sent that off to be fettled, and always the discussion with the mechanic is, how long are you going to keep this? And it's like, well, it depends how much I like it, so how about you fix it, and then I'll work out if I'm keeping it or not. But yeah, Auto Salon was just insane. It's a lot to go 2 days in a row. Like it's an assault on the senses.
Yeah, even 2 days wouldn't do it.
So Jeff, Jeff and Simon, because you've both been, so we can get a concept of this. There's lots of customized section because JDM and Japanese cars are heavily customized. There's a lot of European just straight up and down sales sections, and there's sections. What is it made up of? It's workshops, it's elevators, it's parts producers. It started as a trade show, so basically it's people shilling their wares. But one of the most popular cars there was Liberty Walk have taken an F40 and made it wide body. That was their star car from last year, and this year they did a wide body 25th anniversary Countach. So they're just, I mean, it's not my cup of tea, but all the kiddies go nuts for the Liberty Walk stuff. So it's
similar to SEMA in the United States.
Yeah. Or Essen in Germany, or the like the NEC Autosport show in the UK. So.
Yeah, and it is mind-boggling. Just the first walking in to the stadium, it just takes your breath away. It's like so Japanese. There's neon lights, people, activity, noise, and thousands and thousands of highly modified, very, very interesting. And craftsmanship is extraordinary, but it's a feast for the eyes for at least 2 days.
Yeah, so I had I had a brand new Prius, and we toured the South Island, Kyushu, and I couldn't get a decent hire car down there, so I just thought I'll get something fuel efficient. So I had a current model 2-litre Prius. It was a surprisingly decent car. It had cruised at 160. I mean, it handled okay. It was CVT, so it was a bit terrible, but yeah, it wasn't bad. But when we got to Tokyo, I had a JZX 100 Chaser manual, so there was a few high speed runs through tunnels. And one night we were coming back from Yokohama from the Daikoku Futo car park. I had a nice run with an R35 GTR Nismo. So. Thumbs up were had. So yeah, that was a bucket list moment doing something like that. So
photographs were sensational too, by the way. And
thank you.
Like I said, you're not going again without me. It's blanket. Rex, last time we covered you just basically you flicked me to the curb. That's what you did. Let's face it. Have you done any more trips to Himalaya? Mic on. Microphone on.
Yeah. the last one was Nepal. I think I just got. No. We had the podcast while I was flying to Nepal.
That's right. You were absent. Yeah. And so, any deaths?
Not in our group, but we did pass a group, and the next day someone went off the edge.
Oh my God. That's quite serious, then, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. It's bizarre. We were all at the hotel together, about 10 in theirs, 10 in ours, and the next day the word came through that someone was off the edge. So everyone sort of slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
So did they find them, or they just like, that's it, you're gone, like you've fallen off the edge of the earth?
This particular part we'd been through the day before, and it was quite high. So if you were going off the edge, there was no hope. not even of recovering the bike.
Do Royal Enfields come with parachutes?
The bike.
No.
Gosh.
Yeah,
I know through riding through the Pyrenees, it's a look. It is a drop to your death if you make a mistake, but you've got to be pretty reckless or bloody unlucky to make a mistake. It's most unlikely you will go over the edge, but if you do, there's thousands of feet, and you get hit in the back of the head by a CB 500X, and that's going to take you out.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm surprised somebody went over the edge, depending on the quality of the roads.
Oh, the roads were terrible, and I don't really know what happened, if it was his fault or someone coming the other way or anything. But it doesn't happen often. It's probably once that I hear about, once every 4 or 5 years.
Okay, so obviously I'm putting pieces together here. The trip would have amazing scenery, and the fun and the camaraderie and the Indian beers at the last night and all of this fun would be just outrageous. What are some, like, is the food great?
The accommodation and the food is always better than what people expect.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, people think it's going to be really cold, and it can be, but not the months we go. It's perfect. It's like it was today, 25 degrees. It doesn't rain. Yeah, it's good.
Beautiful. When's your next one?
March, end of March in Nepal, and then Tibet in May.
Okay. What's the weather like then?
Perfect. That's why we go. So it's
okay.
like,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Well, let's go. I'll tell you what I've been up to, because it's tragic. I was looking at TRX 850 Yamahas, which is sort of a mid to late 80s Yamaha V-twin that's in a cafe racer style with sort of angular bodywork at the back. They're nice.
I can't let that slide. There's too many mistakes in that.
Oh, go on.
Do you want to go, Rex, or can I go?
What's the engine configuration, Simon?
Well, okay, so technically it's a parallel twin, but it's not. And I'm going to get to that. It's a 270 degree crank.
Yes.
But they're cast as a twin, and it's the crank that makes them an oddity and an appealing oddity, which is the reason I went down this path.
Yeah. And you got the year wrong as well, Simon. They're sort of 96 to 99, maybe 2000. Sorry.
They are indeed.
You're gonna get a whole bunch of car guys on it.
There are indeed. No,
you're gonna get.
This is beautiful. This is beautiful. So I started going down that path, and there was a couple around the mid 5,000s, and I kind of maybe, and then I was doing as you do. You go down this rabbit hole, and it's almost a one-way trip. And I started to read about the other bike, which has the same engine, but it's a 900cc, and that's a thing called a TDM, and that's an adventure touring bike. And I started to read on those, and the reports came back as like glowing. And they made them up until 2012 when they ceased production. And slightly, they'd improved the engine and the model all the way through, and the last ones were absolutely, a great thing. Anyway, so I started looking, and then I went to that place where one shouldn't go at midnight, and that's called Bike Sales, Marketplace, and BikeSales.com. Anyway, a little while later, I bought the last one sold in Australia, reportedly, and with the delivery books, all the keys, full service history, all the receipts, and one owner. The guy's now 72, and all the oil change. Just an absolutely fabulous example. Cost me $6,000, and it's when I get it shipped here, because it's frighteningly expensive to ship motorcycles across the country. But anyway, why did I buy this motorbike? I needed another one, which is what I told my wife. I bought this motorcycle because of its crankshaft. Yeah, that's the truth. I did. It's got a 200. It was one of the first bikes with a 270-degree crankshaft, which was a Phil Irving sort of concept. But actually, he was trying to get people to build motorcycles with 285-degree crankshafts, so that the compression stroke is even more perfect than the 270. What it does, it gives it the characteristics of a V-twin, even though it's not a V-twin. And which it makes it for a very characterful engine, being in theory that V sort of format in its character. It's got a lot of torque, and they also rev really nicely. And all the reports come back fabulously. I'm so excited. I can hardly wait to get it. But it means getting it back from Frankston in Melbourne. Now, to get a car across, the last time I got a car across from, which would be a year ago now, from Melbourne was about $1,400, $1,500. And I've been quoted the same price, pretty much $1,470, I think it was, to get a motorcycle from Melbourne back to Perth. And it shocks me. I mean,
Was it a while ago, Simon? Has it always been that price, or has that gone up?
Well, it was for years. SEMA, that was the standard price, basically to get a car back from Melbourne to Perth. Or maybe I've just got too long in the tooth. Well, you got your car from Queensland though, then that's a different story.
It was I remember getting my Type R from Western Sydney, and that was I think 1,400, and that would have been end of 2020. But now this time around, getting the Volvo across, there was a handful of quotes that I got, but they were between 1,800 and 2,100. So I went for a two grand option that was relatively
so that's pretty scary as a percentage of purchase.
Yes, particularly when you're getting a banged up Volvo. I think one of the guy thought I was trying to scam him.
Anyway, I reached out last week, and I've got a whole bunch of quotes come back. I think I hadn't even thought of getting across there and then riding it to Adelaide, because it's quite a fun ride to get to Adelaide, and then sticking on a transporter from there and flying home from Adelaide. But even that's like just under $1,300, $1,270, and I add an airfare and blah blah blah. It's just insane. So I put out some quotes thanks to Rex today, some requests for quotes, and we'll see what comes back tonight or tomorrow, and hopefully it's a bit better. But anyway, need to get it back in Perth. Now, there's another problem with this. I now own 2 motorcycles that I don't have a license to ride. So, but that doesn't deter me.
I've noticed that's why you keep following me all the time.
Jeff, sorry?
When's your year up?
It's up, but I have to wait. I've been trying to book in to get my R-Class license, do the practical driving test. And they're booked out until June. You cannot get a position pretty much anywhere. And now I'm having to start I might even have to go down to Albany, or I'll start by places like York and Merredin and places like that to see if I can slide in somewhere. But it's pretty grim. It is really hard to get a booking to get your R. Well, I'd say it's pretty much the same with all licenses, but particularly in R-Class. And I'm kind of ready for it. I've been having lessons, doing donuts in the. No, I joke with you there. I'm driving around witches' hats in the local car park really slowly to keep control over my big bike. I've been on to the Buddhist Meditation Centre with my dear friend for lunch up in Darlington. And we've had, I've done thousands and thousands of miles on this thing, and I just need to get my license now so I can finish it off. But that's kind of like my big adventure this month. Nothing much happening car-wise. We got Monty's old car back on the road, which had been sideswiped by an old lady doing a U-turn, and put her foot on the accelerator and not the brake. She wiped out 2 of the doors, and we took it to a panel beater, and he tried to put it on his rig to pull it back out to put 2 replacement doors on it. And by the way, Sean, those doors will cost you $100 each, including interior trim. But the guy put it on his rig to pull out the sill and the B pillar, and like a normal car, I don't know, pretty much any other car, he puts it on and he goes, "Yeah, come back and I'll tell you how we got on." So I phoned him the next day and he goes, my puller, we just wouldn't touch it. It's like it just groaned. And so he had to put it on this big puller that he's got. And that's the legend of the Volvo for you. It wouldn't fit on wouldn't get pulled out by any ordinary old straightening machine. No, it needed the big boy to pull it out. Anyway, got doors on it again. We've got door trims on the front. We've got to get door trims on the back. And that baby is going. That's my car wrenches month. And I really, really enjoyed myself.
I've got to add to the insurance thing. About 3 weeks ago, I literally dropped, not as in fell off, dropped my Harley Davidson Night Rod Special that I've got, right? And I bought it in 2009, new. I've had it ever since.
It looked like
and it's heavy. It's like 285 kilograms. It's a lot of weight. And I'd locked the front wheel on it. So I'd locked the steering on it. and got on the bike, forgot I'd locked the steering, played around with it, thought I'd unlocked it, dropped it into gear, moved it like 2 kilometers an hour. There's no going back. If the bike's going around like that, it just drops. And when it drops and it's 290 kilograms, you're not stopping it. So very frustrating, and it fell over, and it just fell onto its peg. And the peg actually dug in and dented the frame of the motorbike, right? And I got on the bike, undid it. It was annoying. The peg was sticking up. I rode it home, no problem. I took it to a bike group, and their first inspection of looking at it, they said, it's dented into the frame. We're going to write the bike off.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it's a dented frame. What are you talking about? Writing the bike off? And they said, yep, it's a dented structure. We'll write the bike off. And at any rate, I was horrified. I mean, that's $22,000 it's worth secondhand. It's about the same I bought it for a decade and a bit ago. And they were going to write it off with a bent frame. And I said, oh, this is just terrible. And they said, no, it's very advantageous to you, sort of thing. And they did the numbers. It was quite advantageous. And I said, look, I hate to wreck this party, but this frame is in pieces. You can undo this piece here and take it off and replace it. And they went, oh, don't need to write the bike off. Just replace that piece. But I was amazed to hear, and you're nodding your head, Rex, that if you dent a section of the bike like that and the frame's buggered, you can write it off. Is that right?
Absolutely. 100%. It's so easy to write a bike off because there's no repairs. You just replace stuff. You scratch a tank, there's $1,500. You just replace it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, luckily, this little dented thing was literally a piece of the frame that unbolts and bolts back in again. So hopefully I'll have the beast back on the road again in a little while.
Derek, did you have salvage rights?
There we go. I did. Yeah. I had the salvage rights. The numbers on riding the bike off were extremely attractive. Unfortunately, it's designed that you could just replace that bit. So we've got that sorted. But it was an interesting experience on the way through, getting shocked that my lovely bike would be written off and then I could have the opportunity to buy it. But on the other hand, we didn't need to write it off ultimately along the way. So and look, hey, enough about bikes. I wanted to ask the question because we've got a person in the room that's experienced it, and we've got somebody that does it all the time. And I'm actually talking about importing the car. So, Sean, you've imported a car from Japan through Vans West, so you've got an experience there. And Jeff, you do it all the time. I bet our listeners would be intrigued about importing cars from Japan. And of course, they don't have to be JDM cars. I mean, someone said to me the other day, a Bentley Continental R is worth about 15 grand in Japan, should you want it. But of course, Jeff, the bloody things are in left-hand drive, which makes total sense for an English-built car. But what was the experience like, Sean? And then maybe afterwards, Jeff, you can talk about it.
Well, I think
really
Jeff's
keen to hear.
definitely going to be the expert on this one. I still technically haven't actually imported a car yet because I still haven't got my hands on it. Well, I think for me, it was I basically just walked past Vans West one day because I thought I'm quite interested in doing it. I have some distant cousins that have done it in the past, which I tried to reach out to and they didn't get back to me. So I thought, well, why not? I'll try these Van West blokes. So on the way back from work, I basically just walked in because I've just got a plethora of JDM cars and said, can you import a car for me? And they go, yes. And they gave me this person's number, to which the whole process began. But for me, it's a sort of like an end-to-end service where they'll help you find the car. They'll bid it up for you. They'll obviously handle all the importing in terms of the shipping, and then down at the docks, whatever you have to do, and they're even going to license the car for you as well. And then at the end of it, you should rock up to Vans West and pick up a car with number plates. Now, I haven't actually got through the full process. I'm assuming that's what's going to happen, and fingers crossed that is exactly what happened. But for me, I'm interested, particularly hearing from you, Jeff, because I hear about a lot of people that import cars, and I don't know if it's one, they're going through the same route that I'm going. I'm interested to know what involvement it takes. Is it ever possible to do it all by yourself, or what layers of help you need along the way? E.g., do you have to have someone down on the ground? Can you get logged in to the auction website so I can buy a car and then you hand it to someone else? is it possible to do the shipping all by yourself and rego, etc.? So I'm interested to hear, Jeff, from you what your method is and what other methods could be, and most importantly, level of difficulty.
Yeah, so I think I bought my first car in 1996. It's an R33 Skyline, and it was 2.5 years old at the time. And obviously, I've been doing it ever since. And at the moment, I've got a car in Texas. I've got a car in the UK waiting for freight. I've got probably 3 or 4 sitting on the wharf in Japan, and then another probably 3 or 4 sitting with my agent. But saying certain places you can actually organise the entire thing yourself from here if you know how the paperwork works. You need to get import approval, which is obviously the first part of the process. And when Simon bought his Lotus in from the UK, I helped him out with the import approval on that because he's a mate. But yeah, even that part of the process can be quite fraught, just because you put the wrong thing in a box, you don't know which category it's in. The horror stories of things going wrong for people are a legend. There are certain cars you can only bring in a certain date range. So like you buy an S15 Silvia, and if it's a 2000, but it's an August 2000, not a July 2000, it's ineligible. And, people ship cars without having the import approval. And then I remember when I first started importing, there was a red FD RX-7 that had been sitting on the wharf for about 6 months, and it ended up getting scrapped because some dude didn't understand that you couldn't bring in, you could only bring in a really narrow window with those. So yeah, it can.
Well, so it arrived here and got scrapped.
Yeah. So the shipping companies don't care whether what you are importing is legal to come in or not. Like, their job is slugging you for freight. So yeah, I have probably 2 or 3 buyers that I use in Japan. So basically, they charge me a fee for actually buying the car from auction and then doing the paperwork to get it to port, and I pay for freight. There are plenty of places that have cars in stock that you can just buy a car from stock, and they do all the shipping to the port. And the same in the US. The number of cars that get exported from the US and to a lesser extent the UK, there are people that can perform that part of it for you. The problem comes when when you have to get the import approval, it needs to fit in under a category or be 25 years old when you apply for the paperwork, which is how a lot of really interesting stuff is coming in, and how my 996 is coming in, because that was I think it was a November 98 car, and so it only just became eligible in December when I bought it. So, but yeah, I mean, I love it. There's, I obviously sell a lot of cars because I buy a lot of cars, mostly unregistered, and people say, "Oh, I need photos of this, and I need photos of that, and I need photos of it underneath," and I'm buying cars from the other side of the world from 2 grainy sort of 640 by 480 pictures and an auction sheet. But I mean, in Japan it really works because the process is good. I wouldn't buy a car from an auto trade auction in the UK or one in Texas or something, because the quality'd be rubbish. So, but yeah, I love it.
So that's a really important question I've always wondered about, and I've always been told about, and that is, generally the Japanese cars are very well looked after, a degree of pride, and they come in surprisingly good condition as the normal. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is they have a regular inspection regimen. Their cars have got to be thoroughly inspected every 2 years. So that means that even if you've got a 30-year-old car, but it's still in registration, it's going to be decent. And they do, the Japanese take incredible care of their belongings. Like, on our recent trip, we did a tour of like secondhand stores because my son's into op shopping, and just how well they just keep everything in incredible condition. So yeah, it really is true. They do look after their stuff. I mean, that's not across the board. There's always questionable modifications and poor choices, but on the average, they're pretty good.
Jeff, do you find the car yourself and then you go send it to your agent saying this is the car I want, or do you contact an agent saying I want this car? Can you go find it for me?
So look, the internet has made it all so much easier. When I first started, I used to have to rely on buyers seeing a car and then calling me and describing it to me. And I always remember I bought this 180SX, and it was an incredible looking thing. And the guy was like, oh, yeah, it's got this huge turbo on it and it's got all this. And it came in and it was totally stock. And I called the guy up. I'm like, what were you looking at? Like, seriously, this thing's stock as a rock. Oh, geez, it looked big. But, yeah, so now, like I bought a current model Crown for myself this week. And so I have access to all the auction systems because there's 6 or 8 different companies. And then I find the car, and then I've got a guy on the ground who actually goes and looks at it. He says this is a good one, or this has had paint, or but then other times I just buy cars blind. So it's sometimes a lottery, but if it's something like this Crown that's it's like 2.5 years old, it's not going to be an issue. But yeah, things can go very wrong and they can go very right. So.
Jeff, have you still got that white Corvette out of the States?
Yes, I still have my C4 ZR1. That was my childhood dream car. That was the car that my 12-year-old wanted after reading copious issues of Road and Track. But I had, when I bought it, it was the cheapest ZR1 in the States. And unlike every other ZR1, it's not red on red. Like generally they're red leather, red carpet, red Duco. It's too much, even for someone like me who's generally all right with that sort of thing. So this one's white with tan leather, but it had a problematic clutch, and we got it in, and it had it was a conversion from push to pull, which when the Japanese do it is fine, but when some good old boy from South Carolina does it, not so good. So yeah, I've only just got all the parts together to convert it back to stock, which has taken 12 months. So yeah, it'll be.
You were chasing a misfire as well in that. Did you sort it?
Yeah, it's there's a key that alters the performance, the valet key, so it goes from 270 horse to 450, and that there was a dodgy connection on the valet key, so it goes all right now. 450 is okay.
Beautiful. Good looking car too. I like them. Of the Corvettes, it's up there for me in desirability.
Yeah. And they only made 7,500, so which is pretty rare, and the only Corvette with more than one cam. So
yeah,
which I think is pretty cool.
So we often see on social media and things like that the car dealers in the US, and they've got a yard, and in the yard there's a whole lot of 911 SCs and Carreras there, and there's Mustangs, and there's Corvettes from the 60s and 70s, and I'm sitting there going, wish we could have a yard like that in Perth. Wouldn't that just be heaven? Everyone would go down there every weekend and go, I'll take that one, take this one. It'd just be amazing. But, that's America. It's the land of, the cheapest cars in the world and the largest number of cars in the world. But, Jeff, sometimes I see 65 Corvettes for $9,500. And the guy walks past and goes, black, red, 65 Corvette, good condition, 4 on the floor, nice car, $9,500. He keeps walking like this. I'm going back to the other one. That's just ridiculous. And then you'll see them, split screens for an awful lot of money. But it's amazing to see these muscle cars, Camaros in their mid 20s and things like that, Mustangs in their low teens, cheap cars, and lots of them. is there arbitrage there? Is it worth buying one of those left hook cars for 9.5 or 15 or 25,000, depending on the model, and bringing that into Australia, or is the price really basically fairly evened out? There's very little arbitrage in that process, do you think?
No, it's pretty much. I mean, unless you're talking about like the worldwide price of a 911 964 is the same everywhere. Like left-hand drive, right-hand drive, you know, they're pretty much identical everywhere because it's a world market. The joy happens in it when there is a difference in the desirability. So, you know, Americans aren't going to want a C3 Corvette. Like they hate. Like the only ones they like are the chrome bumper ones. If you've got a plastic, fantastic. They're the ones that are worth $9,500. The problem comes in when, you know, you've got to pay $4,500 freight. You've got to pay, you know, $1,000 to get it off the boat. So, you know, would you be better off buying a ZR1 for $25,000? Probably, you know. So there's so many fixed costs with those things. Like I had a mate that just bought through a Viper, like a first gen Viper, and you know they're an incredible car.
So
and
ridiculous.
The cheapest one here was maybe 120, 130 left-hand drive, and like he landed this, and it is mint for I don't know 75, 80. So you know it just depends what you want, because you got to find something that's undesirable in its home market, which is always the problem.
Yeah. Mate of mine's
statement.
just brought in the Aero Morgan, and he's just got it complied, and his son's doing the compliance. He's got a dealership, and it's a beautiful thing. And I can't remember what his end purchase was. It was close to 70,000. And I looked at this and I thought, he's going to make some money, some good money there on that car. And but it's a joy to drive, and it's just like awesome. I was very jealous.
I've seen that car, Simon. I know who did the compliance on that, and that same mate of yours had a 996 as well, didn't he?
He did, yeah, Martin.
Yeah.
And then before that, he had a MX-5 Fiat Abarth, you know, the current one sort of copy. And he's a really interesting guy. He rebuilds planar speakers and buys weird stuff and delves into it and fixes it. And the Morgan was kind of like that story. He just started looking around on web pages in Belgium, of all places, and found this right-hand drive one-owner car that was kind of a bit rough around the edges, but all there and good. Anyway, it's beautiful. Lovely car.
Yeah, beautiful thing.
Yeah. It makes a good noise too. That I think it's 4.4 litre.
Yeah, BMW engine.
Yeah.
That's
the 540
insight that you've shared with everyone, Jeff. And that insight is that look for a car that's not popular in its marketplace, because it doesn't mean it's not popular here. And I do recall seeing a mid-70s Rolls-Royce convertible, blue with grey leather interior and blue piping, in the US. Obviously not a performance car, right? But a lovely piece of rolling architecture. Now, that car in Australia in its condition, you know, might be worth maybe 80 to 100 and something, because it's convertible. Otherwise, they're 25 grand, you know, all day long. And it was a right-hand drive car in America. Massively unpopular thing. And they wanted about $15,000 for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I went, yes, I'm interested in it, and it sold. So there's a perfect example, Jeff. Unpopular car in that country, but hugely popular if you can move it somewhere else. All right, thanks for sharing. That's really good.
One of the things
Any cars from Hong Kong?
Yeah, I went through a stage of bringing in stuff from Hong Kong, but this was probably early to mid 90s. So I bought in an Integrale in from Hong Kong, and you know, actually I had a 190E 2.3 Cosworth manual, which every time I belted it, I was absolutely sure it was going to explode. It was the most rickety thing, and it wasn't a bad one either. They're just like that. They're pretty loose. But yeah, they just sit around. they idle a lot. They're not, they used to be able to take them out to the new territories and give them a bit of stick, but even that's kind of stopped. So they do buy a lot of really high end Japanese stuff now, but again, it's not used. I would generally recommend against buying anything out of Hong Kong,
Right.
unless it's a recent Japanese import, and then someone's making money on the way through, so you can probably do better.
Yeah. No, I just think about countries. I'm not sure if Hong Kong's tax, but other countries that have a higher tax for registering and purchasing, so the inherent value of the vehicle becomes less, and then sort of export it becomes more appealing on our side because we have less tax. We still have tax, but it's less compared to some of these countries. So they're trying to get rid of the thing rather than trying to re-register it.
Yeah. Simon, your hat is rubbing up against your headphones. So when you nod your head, it's like you're doing wiki on the wheel of the steel.
Thank you. I'm not sure because my microphone's only over there. It's probably the microphone on this, which is more likely. Thank you, Jeff.
That's what it is.
I brought in an Austin Healey 106 out of Hong Kong, and it was all there. But back then, British cars would rust pretty badly in the tropics, and Hong Kong was very much a place where your car was going to rust. So that I had to basically set about rebuilding that thing. And I brought in a Volvo Duet, which is a very old sort of station wagon, like a surfy wagon, out of Maryland in the United States. And that was a good experience. I bought it on eBay and then told the guy where I was. He was what? He went nuts. Anyway, we calmed him down because I had a actually it was Irv Gordon, the guy who did hold the record for the longest miles travelled ever in a car. That's the old red P1800 Volvo in the Guinness Book of Records. Anyway, so that was the guy that helped me say, "Hey, calm down. I know this guy," because he'd been to Perth and I'd spent some time with him here. And he said, "No, it's genuine. It's genuine. He's going to buy your car." So anyway, so we got it shipped out, and making sure there was no asbestos in it was the biggie. And we had it inspected, and some people willing to provide us with certificates. And I very early in the days imported 5. This is 20 years ago. Ford Capri Piranhas, the V8 Ford Capris, out of South Africa. And the big problem there was kind of finding them. You're just forever reading their dodgy newspapers and the web pages and all the rest of it. And then you'd commit to something, and you kind of it was a total lottery what would turn up because their standards were so low. And I didn't realize that Ford actually manufactured the cars using gutter bolts and that the sills were made of chicken wire. Incredible. I never realized that. So, buying cars out of Africa that's a whole different game. So.
Actually, that's a really interesting point that you reminded me of regarding the asbestos, Simon.
Yeah.
So probably the last 5 years, Customs or Border Force, as they are now known, have gotten really, really interested in asbestos in cars. So basically, we've got to sign a stat dec when anything comes in. And obviously, it's been outlawed in Japan since 1994, so it's not that big a deal. If a car has been used since then, it's not going to have asbestos in. The problem comes when you have old English stuff, old Italian stuff, old American stuff. They love that gear. It was just everywhere. So I've actually got a XK8 convertible sitting in Japan, British Racing green interior, green top on a set of 3-piece 20s. So it's the best thing you've ever seen. But it's done radiator, so I've got to put it in a box. They want me to get it from Tokyo to Osaka to get it inspected for asbestos because it's a European car and it's a 97. It's like, come on, guys, really? This isn't going to have asbestos in it. A, it's automatic. B, they want you to change the brake pads. They want you to change the clutch. It's just, okay, it's a bit out.
Apparently there's asbestos in sound deadening as well. I don't know how true that is.
They used to put it on on the transmission tunnel and on the firewall just to cut down on the heat coming into the cabin. So, yeah, nuts.
Yeah.
something to watch out for.
Strange things there to do.
Well,
I had an old TR4 Triumph that I did my very first restoration on. And when I took the front quarter panels off, the sound deadener in the TR4, direct from the factory, genuine sound deadener, was bundles of wool straight off a sheep's back. And they were stuck into a kind of a plastic-ish bag, because this was 1963, this car was. And this plastic bag was jammed in the corner of the, just behind where the front wheel is, in the front quarter panel. And miraculously, believe it or not, these bags sat there and they moved around like that, and it didn't take very long and the plastic wore away. And then the wool filled with water and it dropped down in the corner and it caused them to rust. But bundles of wool straight off a sheep's back.
And people wonder why they call British cars agricultural.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got a
Don't know what they
question.
wonder.
I've got a question for you, Rex. I'm an avid viewer of the Perth Cafe Races page, and I noticed that your employer had I'm trying to think, was it an Honda Boldor? And I had a query about that, because it was like, was the H missing, or was it a mock-up, or how can you have an Honda Boldor? Oh, Mike.
There we go. Sorry. It was actually a Honda CBX 750.
Okay.
And the guy who owned it wanted to chop it up, and he's British. So it's not a Honda, it's an Honda.
Okay, so that explains so many things, because
Yes.
I was just looking at it, and it was cheap too. What was it, like 4.5, 5.5?
6, I think 6.5.
Even if it's not a real one, that's still cheap for one that looks like that.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. He's chopped the rear end, so that's where the H went. He just shortened it. And the number plate is Honda.
See, there's a bike you need, Simon. You need that. I know how much you love a Boldor.
Jeff, don't mention it twice, please.
Boldor.
Now, Derek, back to you. What have we got coming up in terms of things like Supercar Sunday, Swan Valley Ride, all of that sort of stuff? What's happening there?
Well, so of course, it's the first Sunday of every month as a rule, but we have some variations to it. So on the 4th of February, which is just this weekend coming up, as it turns out, it'll be a Classic Cars and Coffee at the event. This time with a lot of volunteers helping everybody, so it should be delightfully smooth running. We will see. And then on the March, it's the 3rd of March for that. Then in April, we're doing Supercar Sunday on the 7th of April. So that'll start at Car Park 9 and head off to the Swan Valley through a great drive through the country and end up at Nicola Estate. So that's on the first Sunday. We're going to have to communicate this a lot, but that's the first Sunday is Supercar Sunday, not Classic Cars and Coffee. And the reason why is on the 14th of April Perth is hosting the Cadillac Nationals. So on Sunday the 14th, Classic Cars and Coffee will have the Cadillac Nationals at it.
Is
so
there
we'll
room?
move the date to accommodate the Cadillac Nationals.
There's only 4 cars.
Should be a great fun. What's that?
Is
There's
there
only 4
room?
cars in the car park.
That's right. I mean, every one of them are going to want a double car parking spot.
Yeah.
And then on the and then of course we've got Swan to Swan in November, which is not dissimilar to Supercar Sunday, and we've got the big event of Festival of Speed coming up in October, and that's now 2 days. That Festival of Speed,
Wow.
literally to be a festival. So so the variations coming forward, we don't have to worry about them for everyone listening until April, when Classic Cars and Coffee will be on the 14th instead of the 7th, and the 7th will be on Supercar Sunday. But I'm really looking forward to this weekend, because it might be the first weekend I'm not running around like crazy from 6:30 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. because of all these wonderful, generous volunteers. And the amazing thing about Classic Cars and Coffee and its community, you reach out to the volunteers and all of a sudden you ask them a questionnaire, do you know quite a bit about cars? Don't be modest. Scale of 1 to 5. 5 is a lot, right? It's like 10 of them have got 5. Because they're all car enthusiasts. Do you know a lot about motorcycles? 3 of them have got 5, so they know a great deal about motorcycles. And these guys have owned all sorts of cars, etc. They just can't wait to be directing cars around and chatting to people, etc. So that'll be a joy to share that fun of being volunteering and to reduce the number of steps I do in a morning.
Well, that just about wraps it up today. Has anybody got anything else they'd like to get off their chest? Anything to confess before we sign off? Well, that's just about a wrap, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
It's been the most exciting of afternoons. I predict for next week that Sean's going to grow his hair. I think by the following week, Ross will get his cut again. And Derek made him get a hair transplant. We've...
Thank you. Some of yours will be fine, Ross.
Jeff, thanks very much for that illuminating expose on your trip to Japan. I'm going there in 3 days' time, and I'm away for a couple of weeks. We've got some snowboarding in Nozawa and about 8 days with a break in the middle in and around Tokyo, and you've already sent me some great tips. Thank you. Rex, I want to hear all about what's happening in the world of motorbikes, what's happening in your world. That what's it called? A Bozoku?
Bozozuku.
Bozozuku. Thank you. Sounds like right up my street. I can hardly wait. Did you know that at Road Motorcycles last week, they had nearly something like 800 bikes, which is the biggest turnout ever.
Yeah.
And they're going to run out of space, actually. It's going to become... And there's a bit of bad behavior there, I've heard, too. People with big turbos and small shorts on doing burning rubber in the street and stuff. It might get a little ugly. They've got to reel it in and make sure it's still a family-friendly event and that people can go there and feel good about it. So, there's plenty happening in the Perth car scene and motorcycle scene, and the weather's divine. I'm going for a couple more rides up in the hills. If anybody wants to join me, reach out. And, it's a good time to be alive and living in Perth. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Simon. See you.